Okay, so on today's Systemize Your Success, I'm joined by William Buist, who is the author of Intentional Mastery, Step Beyond Your Expertise and Build Better Businesses. He's a keen photographer, walker, and skier, but primarily what we want to talk about today is the fact that he enables businesses or business owners to become the masters of their markets and operate more effectively and stand out from all their competitors. So I'm excited about this. It's definitely something that I think I could learn a lot from. So the question is this: how do entrepreneurs like us, who don't have an endless supply of cash, how do we leverage the best apps, virtual assistants, automation tools, and systems to scale our businesses, increase our profits, and have more time to do what we love to do each day? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name's Dr. Steve Day, and this is Systemize Your Success. Welcome, William.
Thank you, Steve, and welcome. It's been a delight to join you today.
Cool. So do you want to kick off and just give us a 2-minute synopsis, if you like, of who you are, where you come from, and how you end up talking to me today?
Yeah, of course. I've been running my own business now for getting close to 20 years, which is quite scary in its own right. Like many people who start their own businesses, I started off as a bit of an explorer. I didn't really know a great deal about all of the ins and outs and the subtleties of running a business. And you read a lot and you talk to other people and you gather the knowledge and kind of get to the point where what I call a novice, still not getting everything right by any means, but you've got some of the knowledge. And the novice is through honing your skills. You work with other people and build the skills of running a business and your own skills in your specialist area. And that turns you into what I call a practitioner. And the world's full of practitioners, people who are good at what they do in the context in which they do it, and there to provide the services and work in the jobs that they work in and do a great job all the time. Some of them will go on and look at how can they hone that skill even further, and through experience will get greater knowledge and become expert in their particular area. And we all know people who are at or getting close to the top of their game, who are really expert in what they do. But there's another step, and that's the bit that really interested me, and that's the step that takes people from expert to master. And I think that the real difference between an expert and a master is that the masters really appreciate the extent of their knowledge across everything that they do. And they know how to pass that on as well to other people. They've kind of made the unconscious competence conscious again so that they can pass it on. And that's part of what leaving a legacy is all about as well. So there aren't that many people who get to that final stage, but when we meet them, they're the sort of people that we just know they have something special about them. And that's what I think we all of the business owners that I work with are striving to go on that journey, to take what they do and become as expert as they can in it, and then master it and pass it on to the next generation and the people that they work with, and making a real difference to the world and to the people that they touch.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think I really, really relate to that, because all the hard work we put in as business owners is worth nothing the day we die or quit our business or whatever, retire, unless you've actually managed to find a way to pass on that knowledge, exactly like you've just said, and for your legacy to continue without you, and to continue hopefully to grow without you as well. So this is something of big interest to me. It's my game plan is to actually create for what I do at the moment. So I definitely wouldn't put myself in that master slot, but maybe tentatively in the expert. But today, if I'm honest, if I dropped dead or got run over by a bus, then there wouldn't be much left to show for it right now. And that's my mission for this year, actually. So this is what's very interesting about speaking to you about, is to start putting a big change in that. And I put a few things in place last year to start thinking about, okay, how do I get other people to now take over the baton from the stuff that I've been teaching now for 6 or 7 years and actually take myself to the next level? And so when I saw your name come up and read about what you were doing, I was like, this is a guy I need to speak to. So this is something I'm very interested in from a personal approach, and I'm sure there are many people listening that are also. So if we maybe ask you, so say if I was coming to you as a potential client, and I've just actually we'll come to this in a minute, but actually filled out a little audit on your site before the show, and you kindly sent me a report over analyzing my current business state. So I'm in your pipeline now. So if I'm coming to you as a client, what is it that you're looking to do? How are you going to help me become that master that you talked about, and what are the things that you'd say look for in me, or what are the next steps?
Yeah, sure. And I think it's a really important question, and I think, again, just to kind of emphasize, one of the differences that I see between people who are focused on an expertise in a business and people who are masters of that expertise is that the masters are drawing insight from all aspects of their life, not just about the topic, their thing, whatever their thing is. You mentioned in the introduction that I'm a keen photographer. I'm certainly not a master photographer by any means. There are plenty of fabulous professional photographers out there, but I am now reaching a point where some of my photographs have been sold commercially and some have been used in the press. So, I kind of feel like I'm getting up there. And part of that was about, as I say, learning, growing, all the other things. But I also find I'm using the skills that I have in photography to help my clients in my business. I'm looking at their business with a slightly different perspective. And seeing the things that they can do and that they outperform the rest of their market in, perhaps with a slightly different eye, because I'm used to looking through a viewfinder. There's just elements of the skill that I can see how they help me see those different perspectives. So what I would do, as I do with most clients, is we'd spend some time together, probably a day at the beginning of any engagement, where I would just be exploring with them everything that has brought them to this point, today. What has got you to be sitting, interviewing people for a podcast and building systems that really work in your business, that I could see from the audit. That's the thing that you're passionate about and that you do well, and that you're creating great systems. But what else is there? What else is around that? What are the things that help you to achieve that? You mentioned before we came onto the podcast that you've got a young boy, a young child in your family, and there will be things you do with him because of your skills in business that help to bring him up and help to teach him. And we'd explore some of that and just see where these overlaps are between the different parts of your life. And I always find that opens up people's eyes to new ways of looking at their business and new ways of thinking about where to put their focus. There's another photography word for you, to where to put their focus to get the best result and the best change that they can make. It's always good fun. It's always an interesting time to just give people the opportunity to step back a little bit and really see how much value they are already bringing to the world in a whole variety of ways. And then we put it back together and say, okay, now what does that mean for how you want to focus the business and focus your role in the business? And you've already described how your role is, changing in your business, how you're looking to move from being the person that is the embodiment of the business to the person who leads the business. And that's a really important change as well.
Yeah. I think I work with clients of all different sizes, but most of them have that dream to do that. But I think that I think I'm right in saying this, just from the statistics, when you look at the business failure rates and the number of employees that most businesses have, about 75% of employees apparently in the UK have no staff. And so they from deducing from that, then they probably are the business, and therefore they haven't got to that level. And so what do you think it is? What are the characteristics of somebody that you think makes it in that? Is something about them, or is it the opportunities they have, or the mentorship they have, or a combination?
I think there's a combination. A big part of it is mindset, and I think we certainly when I started my business, I was, like a lot of people, didn't have the clients yet, so was keeping a fairly close eye on cash flow, and thinking, well, I don't know how to build a website, but I'll learn because I can't afford to pay for a website, and so on, and all those things that we don't do very well because we're right back at the beginning of the journey. We're explorers again, trying things out. I think that the mindset shift comes when people say, this is not my core skill, and I should have somebody for whom it is their core skill to do it, and finding a way to make that happen. Now, obviously, the easy way to make that happen is you go out and you buy the service. But if that's not possible, what else could you do? Can you do a swap? Can you get somebody to build your website because you coach them, or whatever way you can make these things happen? But the key thing is spend as much time focusing on where you're passionate, where you add the most value to people that you can, and get other people to spend the time on the other things you need that you're not so good at. Because the real time sucks if you're doing something you're not very good at, because you probably have to do it more than once, and you won't be very quick at doing it when you do it anyway. Whereas the things that you do really well, you'll be quick at doing, and you'll get them right first time. So that's that mindset shift. And part of that is about really understanding, what are you good at? Where are you adding value? And what are you struggling with that you need to find another way to achieve that result? That's the first thing. The second thing is really getting sure that you've got the priorities right. And one of the things I did early on in my business that I realize now was probably a mistake, for example, was spending a lot of time to get a website together that nobody really visited for a while. So was that the best use of my time? No, it wasn't. The best use of my time then would have been to have been out networking with the people I already knew and looking for referrals to get some of the business that I did get eventually when I did that, and getting it earlier, and then would have the resources to do those other things. So getting the priorities right, and that's one of the things I spend time with all my clients, to make sure that they're making really good decisions about where to spend their time.
Yeah, fantastic. It is very close to my heart. A lot of what you're talking about is what I preach about a lot of the time, which is about the fact that your time as a business owner is so valuable, more valuable than I think we realized for many years, and that the mindset of, oh, it'll only take me 10 minutes is the complete killer of productivity. And yeah. I use a phrase, if you like, when I discuss this on webinars and whatever, and it's, for every 10 minutes you waste each day, that's 40 hours of your working life every year that you've wasted when you add it up. That's a week of your life. Every 10 minutes you procrastinate or do something you really shouldn't do, whatever. And it's one of the things I talk about, because one of the key things that we help with people is to get them to actually offload all of that stuff they know they shouldn't be doing as quickly as humanly possible, affordably, so they can focus more on what they do. So we're definitely on the same page on that. But I also loved the idea of priorities and knowing what you're good at. And I think the priorities one, the example you gave of website, really resonates with me, because back in the day, before this current business, actually, I've spent thousands of pounds and many hours on creating websites that they're no longer even live, but they never got any visitors. Yeah. Whereas the website I've currently got gets quite a lot of visitors, and I've spent like about 4 hours on it in my entire 6 years. It's just like, and my logo, for example, which I used to spend so long procrastinating about logos and all the rest, and names of and all the rest of it. And my current logo cost me $5 on Fiverr. And I literally just said, can you design me a logo? Here's my company name. They came back with one. I said, that's great. And then I used it. Yeah. you know, that's probably saved me about 40 hours of procrastination and design work. So I think, you know, if you could just beat that into people early on, it would save so much, because I know how much time I've wasted in thinking these things are important. But like you said, getting out there and speaking to people and making connections, people buy from people ultimately. So I really like those examples. They really made it, you know, drove home some of the lessons that I've learned over the years. So fantastic. All right. So one of the things I actually I sometimes ask my guests to ask me questions that I can ask you, and you've done that very nicely. And you've answered a couple of these, but I'm going to just refer back to them, because this is one that I think is interesting. And it's the question you asked me to ask you is, how can I make effective decisions every time? And I like this because I'm intrigued to know what you're going to say. So over to you.
It's a decision making is one of those things we all have to do. We do it every day, and some of them we just do in the moment because, you know, somebody says, "Can we do this?" and you go yes or no, and that's it, and it's done. But there are big decisions that we have to take sometimes as well. And when we know it's a big decision, you know, maybe making a strategic decision about the direction of the business, or do we hire a couple of people and bring them in the business? And we know that those decisions are going to have ramifications for a long time. So we want them to be effective. But I'm always reminded of the fact that a good decision is not necessarily one that will have a good outcome. And it's always worth remembering that. And as an example, I'd say, you know, if you went to the horse racing and you put your bet on number one in every race, so you're not really making a decision, you're just doing something. Some of those number one horses might win. Well, was that a good decision? It wasn't any different from the ones that lose. It was exactly the same decision. So it wasn't a good or a bad decision, but it was either an effective or an ineffective decision. And I think one of the things we try to do in decision making is to try to make every decision that we make effective. And I don't think that you can do that. I think what you have to do is have a really good process that underlies your important decision making. And that to me is about being curious about the possibilities, curious about what information is available. Because inevitably, you will not get every single piece of information you need. Some of it will be unknown. You know, if you're hiring somebody, you're not going to know the detail of those people and what they're like to work with week in, week out. Even when you've interviewed them, there's still going to be some uncertainty. So we have to make decisions with uncertainty. So one of the things to think about is, how much uncertainty am I prepared to have at the point I make the decision? And we talked about procrastination earlier. One of the things that can stop you making a decision is waiting for that next bit of information. Oh, I just need to know this before I decide. And then you get that information. You think, oh, well, now I need to know something about, you know, the color of the car that I'm buying, or whatever it is. There's something else. And you can keep putting off the decision. So being really curious about in advance of what level of information is enough, so that when you get to that, you can say, okay, I now have as much information as I expected. It's not everything I want, but it's enough. I'm going to make the decision now. That's the first part, so about the information. The second thing is to ask yourself, what have I done in the past that's like this? And what was the result of the decision I took then? And quite often we'll find that, again, I look across, not just in the business, but at other aspects of your life. If you're interviewing somebody for a job and there's a question you ask that you get an unexpected answer to, it may be that if you think back to other situations, there's been a time when that similar unexpected answer has actually given you some good information, but it was when you're on holiday with a friend just talking in the bar. You know, it could be anything. So having that curiosity around what you know, curiosity around what it's telling you, what you've had in the past that's been similar. And then the last piece of the jigsaw for me is, who can I consult with? Who can I ask? Just double check that I'm reading the runes right, if you get what I mean. So having a trusted confidant that you can pick the phone up to and say, I'm thinking of hiring this chap, just done the interview, can I just talk through a couple of things and see what you think? Just can really help you. That vocalizing what you're thinking helps. Hearing, because it takes it out of your brain and puts it out into the world, and you hear it through your own ears, and that hits a different bit of your brain that sometimes, I'm sure this has happened to you, you know, you say something out loud and go, oh yeah, I know what to do. As soon as you've said it out loud. So that opportunity to have somebody that you really trust, you know, it could be your wife or partner or husband, it could be a business mentor, it could be a coach, it could be another member of staff, just somebody that you know is qualified in some way to help you think that through. Always worth, I think, having that conversation before you make the decision. And then once you've made it, the other thing to do is not to have too many regrets about the decision. Even if it goes wrong, it's all good experience. And you know, if it does go wrong, and some of your decisions will, is to be curious about, you know, has it gone wrong because there was something I missed, or has it gone wrong because of something that I just couldn't have predicted? Because those are two different situations. If you couldn't have predicted it, the decision was still a good one. If you could have, then what do you need to change in the process next time so that you don't miss that, whatever it was that you missed?
Cool. I like that. It reminds me a little bit of what you're talking about at the end about not regretting the decisions. And I don't know if you read the book Poke the Box by Seth Godin. Yeah. And he sort of, it's that sort of same mindset, isn't it? It's about, you just got to have a go, you know, and something's going to happen. It's going to go one way or the other, or a completely unknown way. And whatever happens is an outcome that can be used for good, like as in, like, you can learn from the mistake, or it could be the outcome you truly desire. And I work a lot with my staff on this, because they work in they're from the Philippines mainly, and they have a big fear generally about making mistakes at my cost, as in the business owner's cost. And so we work a lot on this. They've all read Poke the Box, for example, as a PDP, professional development plan reading. So I think it's such an essential part of it, and for yourself as much as for your team as well. So yeah, I love that. Okay,
if I can just very quickly,
yeah, come in.
Book that I really recommend if you feel your decision making needs some support, and that's a book called Time to Think by Nancy Klein. There's a sequel called More Time to Think, and if you haven't read either, they both cover the same ground. More Time to Think was written 10 years later, so the thinking has advanced a bit. I'd read that one if you haven't read either. And it really just is about ways in order to give yourself, with a partner, the time to talk and think things through.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. I will be sticking that on my Audible list for next time I go for a run. So, okay, cool. This is fascinating, and it gets me excited because, as I said earlier, as we introduced the interview, this is something that I am actively looking to work on. And I didn't really know, I guess I hadn't done much research into it, but I didn't really know that there was such a thing as a mastery coach or whatever. Sorry if that's not the expression you call the term you call yourself, but with that idea of how do I turn my expertise into something that is perpetual and to transcend to the next level, so to speak. And so I think what would be quite interesting for myself, and hopefully for the people listening, was just to understand a little more about how that would work. Like how, we touched on this before, but is there anything like what is the process? Obviously, you don't want to give away all your trade secrets, but what is the process that you would take someone through if they were, a mentee of yours over a period of time?
Yeah, thanks, Stu. And it's you've hit on a really important part of this. I've kind of touched on it when I talked about the various stages towards mastery, but maybe I just talk briefly about the gaps between the stages. So the explorers heading towards novice, people who are keen to get knowledge, they're right at the beginning of the journey. They need to know more about the topic. When I first got a camera, I pored over the instruction manual, for example, just to get the knowledge, and you read books and all of those things. Novice to practitioner is about honing skills. So that's where you might work with training companies and be taught how to actually do the tasks that you're needing to do. Practitioner to expert is about building experience and seeing the work that you do in different environments, different contexts. And all of those three gaps, and we'll come on to expert to master in a moment, all of those three gaps are about filling in something that's missing knowledge, missing skills, missing experience, and building that up. And the psychologists, there's two psychologists, a chap called Ken Porlack, was one of them, I can't remember the other one, who did quite a lot of work around how adults learn. And part of what I'm talking about is a consequence of their work. The expert to master transition is about something completely different. It's not about adding something that was missing. It's now about appreciating everything that you have, that you already have, and seeing how it fits, how the jigsaw of who you are, what your skills are, what your experience has taught you across, as I say, that the whole of your life, that how that fits together, and how you can then use that experience, that whole of life experience, to bring back, and this is why I talk about the whole being able to pass it on to other people, to bring back into consciousness what it is you actually do and how you go about doing it. So it's quite a reflective time. And part of what I do with clients who are in that expert to master transition is guide them through their own self-reflection of what they have got in the toolbox and how it works, and bringing back to consciousness all those unconscious competencies, so that they can think about, like, now I know that that's how I do it. These are the contexts, these are the insights that I have from elsewhere as well. I can construct the way to pass this on to other people. And I think it's one of the frustrations you see in business is business leaders and managers who are trying to get their staff to do the things they want done and are frustrated that they're not doing them. And partly that's because they haven't appreciated in themselves how that skill can be passed on. They're the experts, but they're not yet the masters. And it's that frustration is a symptom of that. So when I work in large organizations with groups of senior people, what we do is run that kind of like I call it a mastery group. It's about getting them together in a room where they can help each other to reflect on what they're bringing to the party. And facilitating that learning and that appreciation. And that's what makes the difference.
Interesting. Very interesting. Cool. Okay. I could talk to you for hours about this. This is something, as I said, I'm very interested in, but also just I've had quite a varied life over the years. I've been in computing, I've done property development. I was a doctor for many years. I run a photographic studio and a recruitment agency, to name a few. And I guess part of what you're talking about, maybe I hope I'm under correctly, is so all of those life skills over the past 25 years in business. And all the stuff they do on the side, so whether it's for me climbing mountains, telemark skiing, running ultra marathons, kayaking, being a family guy, whatever, all the traveling around the world a couple of times, all those cool stuff I've done, they all influence who I am and what I know. And it's not, like you said, it's not actually just about the thing, the knowledge thing. It's much more than that. And I know I grew massively being a doctor, from before I started medicine to afterwards. But it even took me a while after, when I came back into business, to start using the skills I'd learned in medicine and applying them to my own business. And it took me to actually realize I wasn't doing it, to start doing it, which sounds crazy. Like all the skills that I learned, whether it was about leadership or about team working, and I almost like fell into my old self when I came back into business. And I had to sort of kick myself at some point and realize I know how to do this. I'm not applying the skills I've learned. And I guess is that the kind of thing you help people to work through and to realize this? Obviously, I'm sure there's massive more stuff I've not thought about yet, but is that the kind of thing?
Exactly. And I think, that knowing that you've been a doctor, knowing that the doctors that I know and the way that they work, they're looking at a problem that you can't quite categorically say. Sometimes you can, but a lot of the time you've just got symptoms to deal with. Well, when we work in business and with business problems, we've just got symptoms to deal with. We're triaging the problem, and then we're suggesting a course of treatment for it. It's actually not that different. The context is very different, and the treatments about, we're not going to give the company antibiotics, but we're going to take some actions of some sort or another that an attempt to treat whatever the issue is. And sometimes that won't work. Just like sometimes when you're a doctor, you give somebody treatment and they're back a week later saying, I'm no better, because something in the diagnosis wasn't quite right, or something in the treatment isn't quite right. Well,
they've not divulged all the information.
Yeah, exactly.
How much beer they drink every week or whatever.
So, but the same is true in business, isn't it? Yeah, that we're facing a set of information on which we have to make a judgment on what the right treatment is. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we don't. And your skills that you learned as a doctor are really valuable in that situation when you're working with a business. Yeah. And I think that's the point about where we get to mastery, is when you extract from your experience as a doctor the key skills that help you do what you are now doing and apply them in a way that makes that work. It also does something else. It makes you the only person who does what you do your way. And that, to me, is the ultimate unique selling proposition, because nobody can copy it. It is impossible to copy it, because your experience was your experience at the time you had your experience, and nobody can copy that. So if we get to the bottom of all of those skills and put them back together in the context of your business today, nobody can touch it. You become the only person in the world who does what you do. And that's when you start getting people picking up the phone and saying, I need to work with you, because the message has got out there.
On that note, on that bombshell, I think let's draw this to a close, but not because I in any which way want it to end, but unfortunately we need to. But that's been very insightful. William, thank you very much indeed. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, if I may.
Yeah.
Were you aware I was going to ask you these questions?
I'm about aware-ish, yes.
Aware-ish, okay. They're not difficult, don't worry. Okay, so very simple to start off with. Tell us a couple of your favorite apps or browser plugins or software that you use.
There's a couple of things. We're in a world that's changing very quickly, and AI is appearing, and some AIs I find quite frustrating, but there's one that I'm finding really interesting that I'm playing with right now, and that's a tool called Udly, YOODLI. And Udly lets you record the spoken word and indeed video if you wish, and it analyzes it and gives you feedback on how well you're communicating your message. So it'll pick up things like filler words, so the ums and ers that we have probably dropped into our conversation, tells you how many there are, and just helps, and it's helped me because I do some professional speaking as well. It's helping me to hone that and get better at delivering the messages that I want to get across. So that's a fabulous tool, and I really like that one. And the other things in as a plugin, again, this is all to do with communication, getting the message across. Grammarly, just to double check, again, it's an AI. It's checking spelling and the formation of sentences and things and giving a bit of advice. I'm still writing everything that I send out, but it just gives me a bit of guidance not to make silly mistakes, which is one of the things we've talked about. So that would be my two.
Fantastic. When you say you write stuff, do you mean with a pen or on the keyboard?
On a keyboard.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, I interviewed a guy on the podcast a little while ago from I'm going to get the name of the company wrong now. Could be Writable. I think I've got that wrong. Anyway, the apologies if you listen to this episode. And basically, it's they have robots that write letters for you. So you type it, and then they have a robot that picks up a pen and writes it for you in your handwriting.
Ah,
so you could then put it through Grammarly and then get it handwritten. That's what I was going to say. Anyway, okay, cool. Who else do you think would be a great guest for this podcast that you might be able to refer me to?
I'm working at the moment, again, this is all related to my speaking, with a fabulous chap called Steve Bustin. Steve is a past national president of the Professional Speaking Association, and he's a communications and speech coach. And he has a lot of really interesting stuff to share around how to get your message across.
Cool.
The other, if I can give you two.
Yeah.
My partner is a lady called Chantal Cornelius, and Chantal is working around the psychology of emotions and how using the emotions, encouraging our clients to feel the emotions that they want to feel can help you stand out. And I think knowing what you do and what you talk about, you would find that a very interesting conversation to have. So that's two people I would recommend. Fantastic.
I'll speak to it afterwards. Get some details. Cool. The title of this podcast, as you may or may not know, is Systemize Your Success. But what does success mean to you?
Success, I think, is one of those things, very difficult to put your finger on it. Sometimes you can say, you set a goal, you achieve the goal, it's easy, that's success. But for me, success in life is about being content that you are doing the best that you can in the best way that you can, and helping other people to be the best that they can. And it's not about seeking happiness. It's not about seeking great whoop moments with medals and all the rest of it. It's about that feeling of, I am doing the best that I can do for the people that I work with, and I'm getting good feedback, and that sense of contentment that you get when that's happening. So for me, it's about contentment, not happiness.
Fantastic. Do you believe you can systemize your success? And if yes or no, why?
Absolutely, I do. In fact, in my book, in Intentional Mastery, one of the big strategic areas I talk about is about systems, is about having the right systems to support you. And we talked earlier about, get other people to do the things that you can't do so well, but it doesn't just have to be other people. If you've got great systems that take it off your desk because the system deals with it, then that will work too. So I absolutely think that, anything that you can automate, make sure that it's working properly before you automate it, because otherwise you automate a mistake. But if you can automate it and make it work for you that way, then you should.
Fantastic. Great advice. Thank you very much. And lastly, before we go, I did mention this earlier, which I do encourage everyone to go and do. So tell us a little bit about the audit that I've completed on your website, but I'll let you explain it. And from my side, I got a brilliant report back from William, which was really insightful and actually very helpful to look at which areas that I needed to actually focus on, and the areas which I actually felt I was strong. So it was a very good starter for 10, so to speak, about opening up the thought dialogue, I guess, that I need to have in and around this journey. and hopefully the beginning of a further conversation with yourself. But tell us a bit about it from your side, and why people should go and check it out from your opinion.
Of course, it's 5 areas that it looks at in business, 5 key strategic areas. Should take probably no more than about 5 minutes. I think the average time to fill it in is just under 5 minutes.
I think I was about 3 minutes. It was, yeah, it's nothing. It's not a long-winded thing. So yeah, definitely.
And although I've mentioned AI, there's no AI behind this. I get the results and produce, I'll take a look, and I take a look at what I know of the business. I'll probably have a look at your LinkedIn profiles and things if somebody fills it in. And so I get a flavor for the sorts of business you're running. Because what I want to do is give people, the bulk of the report is templated, but there is some personal guidance in every section, and I want to make sure that that fits for the people who complete it. So the report would come normally within 24 to 48 hours after you fill it in on the website, and it's easy to find. Steve has shared my name earlier, William Buist, and the audit is at audit.williambuist.com. And the Buist bit of that is B-U-I-S-T. So audit.williambuist.com will take you straight to it. Fantastic.
And we'll obviously put all those details in the show notes or the description, depending on where you're listening or watching this, listening to or watching this podcast, I should say. Well, after that, I think all that's left for me to do is to say thank you very much indeed, William, for coming along today. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. Really insightful stuff. And yeah, I look forward to continuing our conversation.
Me too. Thank you, Steve. It's been a pleasure to be here.